Okay, welcome. So I'm going to cover some stock market technical analysis. We'll start out with the indices, looking at the S&P 500. We'll look at tech, financials, and the small caps. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those. We don't have a whole lot of change right now, so we'll go through those, and then I'll cover some individual trade ideas and just look at what's kind of working right now, and we'll wrap up. So starting out with the S&P 500 today. It's just kind of more of the same. We just continue to kind of grind higher. There's no technical change. We're at all-time highs. There's no resistance overhead, and there is no reason to short, okay? There's no sell signal. Now, we do have, on the daily chart, we have negative divergence. You can see here that it remains intact. The negative divergence is still there. If we keep going much higher, though, we're going to burn through that negative divergence. So that's just something to kind of take note of. There's no reason to short, but there's also, from my perspective, while this negative divergence remains intact, I don't necessarily want to be long this market at the all-time highs like this. I'd be more interested in looking for a sell signal or some reason to actually short this market down. As of right now, nothing's there though. So I'm just sitting flat on that one. Here's tech, triple Qs. Tech on the hourly, you can see we have this price channel that we've been working in. A little bit of whipsaw right there where it dipped below, but then gapped right back above it the next day. And, we're starting to break back down again, but it's not impulsive. We're still there. So if the selling really increases throughout, into the close, then that might be a sell signal. Moving us down to potentially this lower trend line about 334 or so, 335, depending on when we get there. But as of right now, no sell signal, no reason to short the Qs, no reason to, just ultimately I'm looking for a short on this, but I don't see it yet. On the Qs, on the daily, we still have negative divergence that remains intact. That has not been negated, and that's why I'm looking for a sell signal or a reason to short. I don't want to be long the triple Qs at all-time highs with negative divergence. There's a high probability that fails, so I'm really looking for an opportunity to short. But until it shows up, we're just going to continue to look for setups. So moving on to the small caps. Small caps is just range bound. Here's the hourly. Again, I just talk about this range. 225 as resistance and 220.50 as support, and we're just continue to remain range bound. No change there. So looking at the financials, again, upward trend line right here. That trend line remains intact. No sell signals, no impulsive selling. And if you look at the daily, there it is right there, just a continuation to the upside with negative divergence, though. You can see the negative divergence on the XLF is right there. The financials have a high probability of having a breakdown signal or a sell signal, but until we see it, until it shows up in the chart, there's no reason to short. So just remaining on a watch for that one as well. Here's apps, Digital Turbine. I've talked about this one for a while. So again, right up here at resistance, it was right at around 95, but we stopped a little bit short, and we've just been selling off, heading down towards the bottom of the trading range, which, the trading range could be right about here. We could probably even move this up a little bit, but we had this gap right here. I'm going to leave it down here at about 65. So this is, from the resistance area down, that's down 20%. And it's a big range, so we just continue to kind of resolve sideways. This was your uptrend line. We had negative divergence. We broke trend, and we're just moving sideways since. So looking for continued breakdown of this one. I'm still short this one. DraftKings here, I just want to point out, clear head and shoulders topping pattern right now. You've got the shoulder, the head, and the shoulder pretty clear. A distinct pattern with the neckline sitting right there at about 57, right around 58. An impulsive break of that level, an impulsive breakdown, and I think we're heading down to this lower trend line. I have it circled right there. That would be down around 48, 49 bucks. And I think we're going to get it. I don't know if we'll get it today. but I think it's, we're going to get it here pretty soon. This high price action right up in here was a divergent high. You'll see here on the daily, big negative divergence. So the momentum in this has just been really this was peak momentum back here, and every new high has been less and less momentum. So it tells me that we're about to see a trend reversal. Here's your more major trend right here, and that's where I think we're heading down to next. And then a break of that obviously sets us up for, a larger move to the downside. But for now, we're looking for that, a move down to the lower trend line, and just waiting for the breakdown. Snap is breaking down today, getting a little bit more impulsive breakdown action. So Snap has been a short really since we started backtesting resistance right here. That was a really objective area to start to short this thing. And it tests, here's your trend line. There's your trend line on the daily right there. We've been walking up that. There's your breakdown of the trend and a back test. And it spent about 6 days back testing that. Today we're seeing resolution to the downside. Pretty impulsive selling today. And this had negative divergence right there. So the negative divergence when you were uptrending up in here, this was telling you that we were likely going to get a break in trend. And there's your break in trend, a back test. And now I think we resolved to the downside. Looking to actually, over time, the trade I think would be to fill this gap. At least work our way down into filling that gap. We've got some major support right here at about 48.23. That's where we bounced off of last time when we hit it. If we get back down there, I think we're going to break and start to work our way down to this gap fill, down around 29 bucks. So I like this. This is still working. If you shorted at resistance right up here, the thing's profitable, anywhere from 4 to 5%, 6% maybe at max. But it is working and continues to look like it's going to work. So I like it. Okay, let's cover something a little new. We'll look at this lithium stock. Someone asked me what I thought about the lithium stocks. I haven't looked at them all, but I just popped this one open. Look, lithium is a commodity. It's part of the inflation trade, and there is clearly an inflation trade going on right now where commodities and inflation hedges are starting to, they just continue to work. Gold had a pretty good pullback and correction, but it does look like gold is, starting that next leg higher, and that's an inflation play as well. And so I don't see any change in posture right now on this stock, ALB, for upside movement. Here, longer term, all right, here's your trend line coming off the March 2020 lows. Nice clean uptrend line that I've got marked out. The 200 days kind of following that as well. And that trend's not broken. It's still intact. When I look at the divergence, or when I look at the momentum in the RSI and the PPO, I don't see negative divergence. You can see here, this was a new high right here in RSI and kind of an equal high in the PPO made on higher price. So that's not really a negative divergence. We now had a pullback, so I think we're likely going to get a tag of this trend line again, but there's no break in trend. And until I see some signal or indication that we're going to break trend, I would just look as a tag of this trend line as as the area that you'd want to go long on this thing. So yeah, I think it's probably likely we're going to work our way to that trend line. So maybe a little more downside, but I don't see a break in trend. And if it happens anytime soon, let's say we drop right down and hit that trend line, probably going to have bullish divergence on the momentum starting to show up. So yeah, in general, still looks bullish to me. Guys, there's just not a whole lot more going on today. We can look at the gold miners. I'm just not seeing any real setups or trade, any entry points on anything else that I really want to point out. Gold, you can see continued upside. So we're clearly getting that breakout in gold above 1750. Next level of resistance is about 1790. It's right up here. 1790 is a big level. If I roll back all the way, going back to 2011, that's your level of former resistance right there at 1790, where it was we tagged it 3 times. Tagged it there, tagged it there, tagged it there. This was just an overshoot, but once you overshot and then came back down and formed, an actual trend of multiple tags of that. So that validates that. Now, as I zoom in to the more frequent time, you can see here's 1790, undercut it. And look where we launched off from. 1790. That's where this ramp just took place. So it's a very valid level. It will be a big level of a breakout if we break out above it. And that's likely going to be your next level of major resistance. You can see right here we held it as support. So what we've done recently is we've undercut it. If we break back above it, this move down here was really just a false breakdown, and I think a move back above, an impulsive move, is really setting us up for the next trend higher in gold. And this is going to be a trend that will trend for a while. I think it will be likely the next just bull market trend, next leg higher in what looks to be a bull market in gold. So maybe that brings us up to 3,000 in gold, 4,000. I don't know exactly where it goes to. But again, just zooming it in, 1790 is the next level of that's going to be major resistance. So we want to see that break out to the upside to kind of clear the way for the next leg higher in gold. And the miners are kind of taking a breather today. A lot of the miners, up slightly, building on gains, just not huge. A huge build from yesterday. Yesterday was a big day. A lot of the miners had huge gains yesterday. Today we're kind of building on those, but we're not giving back any gains, just kind of adding a little bit. So not a whole lot to cover in the miners. They just continue to look bullish, and I'm continuing to look for areas to potentially add to positions in the miners on pullbacks. That's really all I got for today. Unless anything happens, I just don't see a lot of setups or anything else. So Snap's working out. Some of the other ones that I pointed out in previous videos are just kind of treading water, not really doing anything that's worth pointing out today. So I will likely do a live stream tomorrow, and probably start that around 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern. That seems to be a good time for a lot of people. So I'll do a live stream. Bring your questions, bring your stock picks that you want me to look at to that live stream, and we will go through those. I will catch everyone on the next video. Later.